can't believe we're doing the two best movies of all time 2 weeks in a row.
I know, right?
First Megan, now this. I'm Erin.
I'm Tom.
And this is Baby's First Watchlist, the podcast covering our first Hitchcock movie for the Babysitters Club.
Don't you love it?
Yeah, I do, actually. I feel like Hitchcock was like sketch.
He was very intense. He was not known for treating his his actresses very well.
Big surprise. Today, it's all about 1958's Vertigo.
He was married for a very long time to one woman, though. He wasn't one of those people that was in and out of marriages, which is interesting.
He was a one-woman man.
Alma.
Didn't Helen Mirren play her at some point?
That sounds right.
I think so. Although she did not look like Helen Mirren. We looked her up yesterday.
No.
She just didn't. It just is what it is. This classic psychological thriller starring James Stewart, best known for...
A lot of stuff.
Well, what's he best known for?
Maybe It's a Wonderful Life, I guess.
I would say that, but also My Family for Getting Lunch with My Nana.
Yes.
When she worked at the rare book section of Princeton University. Her two claims to fame were that, number one, she helped Alex Haley find research for Roots.
Which is legit. That's awesome.
It's so cool. And two, she got lunch with Jimmy Stewart. So that is pretty neat.
His filmography, top to bottom, is wild.
Yeah.
He did a lot of the Frank Capra stuff. So he did It's a Wonderful Life. He did Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. He also did things like Rear Window, which is another Hitchcock.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Vertigo, of course. The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance, which I just recently watched, which is John Ford.
Is he the man or is he Liberty Valance?
He is neither, which is kind of the thing.
Spooky.
Yeah. It's not spooky. It's a Western. It's really good, though.
So, yeah, it stars James Stewart. Is he always billed as James Stewart?
I noticed that at least in Rear Window and in It's a Wonderful Life, he was.
Wow.
Yeah.
But we know him as Jimmy.
Yeah.
It's weird. And Kim Novak, who is best known for Vertigo. But she was... but it's weird because she's like super famous.
Yeah. Well, Vertigo was a big movie at the time, even though it wasn't, as I'm sure we'll get to, it wasn't super well received at the time.
Yeah.
It was still a Hitchcock, you know?
Yeah.
He was at the height of his powers at this point.
That's true. It also
Slightly before Psycho, but...
Yeah, Psycho was his big moment, I guess. It also starred Barbara Bel Geddes, who is best known as the matriarch in the TV soapy Dallas.
I've heard that name before.
Yeah, me too. But that's what she's best known
it's
for.
Me cracking open a cold one. It's a mint green tea Spindrift seltzer.
Yeah, it's actually really good. I want you to wait. Let's get your first impression.
It's not as cold as I would like because we didn't have it in the fridge for that long, but it's really good.
Isn't it delicious?
Yeah.
I love it.
I recommend it.
Yeah, it's like a seltzer.
Spindrift should sponsor this podcast.
Yeah. Oh, it's sparkling water. Sparkling water with green tea, mint green tea.
Is there a difference?
Between sparkling water and seltzer? I don't know the answer to that.
Well, that's not what this podcast is about, so
Perfect.
You can research it yourself, listener.
The film Vertigo was based on the 1954 French novel, which in English is From Among the Dead.
Ooh, spooky.
Isn't that spooky? Which is by Pierre Boileau and Thomas Narcajac. I took Spanish.
I don't know if we have any French listeners, but we won't. We won't after this.
So it was adapted, or at least credited, the screenplay to Alec Koppel and Samuel A. Taylor separately. I'll get into it.
Was there a fight over the credit?
Uh-huh. Yep, there was. Of course, this is directed by, I don't know, would I put maybe the most famous director ever? Alfred Hitchcock?
I would say if we're talking like, yeah, maybe the most famous ever.
If I'm like, name a director.
I would say it might be Hitchcock and Spielberg.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Or Scorsese, I guess.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, true.
Those are like the biggies nowadays. Well, but to me, why Hitchcock maybe is because he's like mad old.
He's old and he's like mythical.
Yeah. And like people were like, oh, John Ford. Nobody knows who John Ford is.
John Ford is also way less of a cool name than Alfred Hitchcock.
Yeah,
which I think plays into it. Alfred Hitchcock is a suspense master's name.
Plus,
it's a perfect name for what he is.
He also made a lot of cameos. He wasn't in this one though, I don't think.
I don't think so either.
But he made a lot of cameos in his movie, so like you knew what he looked like.
Stan Lee vibes.
And, like yeah, the whole thing. So I don't know. So Hitchcock,
or Ben Affleck vibes, I guess, from a few episodes ago.
He's known for. I put Psycho first. Vertigo and Psycho are the two.
Yeah.
North by Northwest.
He did Rebecca, right?
Yes. Rebecca, The Birds, Rear Window, and others. He was nominated for 46 Oscars.
Insane.
He won 6 of them, and he never won Best Director. He was nominated, I think, twice for it.
I'm sure that's a big famous thing.
No, he might have been nominated a lot of times. I don't remember.
That's a big famous thing I probably should know. I'm sure it was in the Oscars book I read.
And I'm sure it'll be on trivia.
Yeah.
But yeah, he never won Best Director, which is crazy. Which is why I feel like they were like, oh, Scorsese, we're just gonna give it to you for
The Departed.
The Departed, right? Like people do that.
A lot of times you don't want that person to go unrecognized.
Exactly. So Scorsese is still like, hold up, I got like 20 more years.
Yeah.
Movie making, so relax.
Yeah. Also, The Departed is not even close to his best movie, but it's not
The
a bad
Departed
movie.
slaps.
It's a fun movie.
It's very fun.
It's not his best movie.
Whatever, he got it, and I get it.
Yeah.
Like they should have done that with Hitchcock.
Maybe. I guess it would have been for like The Birds or Psycho.
Diane Warren's like, oh my God, please. So cinematographer Robert Burks, editor George Tomasini, and music guy composer Bernard Herrmann, they were all kind of Hitchcock regular contributors and collaborators. So I just put them down like their names. But something interesting, composer Bernard Herrmann, his last score before his death was Taxi Driver.
Really?
Which is a huge film. And I think a lot of them worked with this one with I forget what movie. Oh shoot. I forget what movie it was, but there was Cape Fear, the original Cape Fear. Like a bunch of people that like work with Hitchcock a lot also did that. The script, this is like the big it's not really controversy, but it's really interesting. The script was really written by 3 people, all separately. So Maxwell Anderson, he wrote the original script. He was not really known for movies. He did more, I think, theater-y stuff.
Okay.
And so he was older. He was like 68. And he wrote the first script, and Hitchcock was like, no. So then Alec Koppel took it over. He gave it a shot. Rejected again. Then Samuel A. Taylor, he added in some other stuff. So he added in Midge.
Okay.
So she's like a
the
secondary
main character is like friend. Yeah.
And he changed it up a little bit, and that was finally to Hitchcock's satisfaction. So Taylor, that guy, the third one, he wanted a solo writing credit, but
because he cleaned it up.
Right. But Koppel, he protested that and complained to the Screenwriters Guild.
Yeah.
And so they were like, all right, fine. And so he got added. So it's not a duo that writes.
Right.
It was 3 separate guys. The first guy, he didn't get nothing. And then the second guy, because he protested and complained, he got added to the writing credit. And I found that
that's kind of like this Citizen Kane situation.
Right. Yep.
With Wells
so
and,
watch Mank if you are really, really like insomnia based. If you really need to go to sleep and you also are kind of interested in writing credits, but also you literally have not slept in days and you need anything, you will take anything. Watch Mank. Like a great movie.
Academy Award nominated 10 times, I think.
Yeah, it was like the most nominated that year. Like, okay. Listen, there's no accounting for taste.
I liked it.
Okay. Vertigo was shot on location in San Francisco, California.
You can tell.
I love movies shot on location. I just do. And it also was shot in Hollywood on the Paramount lot as well. In fact, it only was on location for like 16 days.
For the location shots.
Yeah. And that kind of like The Room. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, exactly.
Although, didn't they drive to San Francisco for one thing?
They went
for the football scene?
They did a helicopter for all the shots.
Like the drone-y
the establishing shots, yeah.
It's good stuff, man. And 2 months they did it in not The Room, this movie.
Yes.
2 months they filmed on the Paramount set.
Yeah.
It is the first movie to ever use the dolly zoom.
Which is the Vertigo effect, right?
Which is the Vertigo or Jaws effect.
Right.
Because the most famous use of it is in Jaws, actually. And it kind of alters the perspective by kind of like zooming in. So like, or zooming out.
It almost looks like if you're looking down like a finger thing. You know those like finger connector
like
things?
the finger trap, Chinese finger trap?
traps.
Yeah.
If you're like pulling that apart, that's kind of what it looks like.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
I don't really get the technical stuff. Even though I feel like this is the most like basic thing.
I have it here. I have it in my like trivia section. I don't know if I'm gonna get to it.
It's one of those things where it's like
I don't know if I can explain it right.
It's one of those things where like if you see it, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I think of when he looks down from the is it a monastery or whatever?
The bell tower.
And it's the whole like
Yeah.
That's what I think of.
Yes.
Which is
listeners you'll understand that.
So Hitchcock, I don't know if you knew this. I had to go to a separate Wikipedia page for this.
Oof.
Hitchcock
This is what we call research.
This is a research. Hitchcock first wanted to do the dolly zoom during the filming of Rebecca.
I did read that.
But
I love Rebecca.
I never saw it, so I need to see it.
Yeah. You'll
but
really like it.
He didn't get it the way that he wanted, so he didn't use it until Vertigo.
He didn't like the technology.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm like, what technology?
Yeah, exactly.
But it's yeah, of course.
And Rebecca was 1940, so that was
yeah.
18 years before this movie.
Yes. Yes. That is good math.
Yep. It's like how James Cameron wanted to do Avatar in like the mid 90s.
And just was not going to happen.
Yeah.
I would love to see a mid 90s Avatar. Actually, no, I wouldn't. Stop. Don't do that. Don't take a time machine and make that happen. When first released, the 128-minute long, it's a little long, Vertigo had a mixed critical reception. Some U.S. critics found it to be a little slow, especially in the first act. UK critics disliked it quite a bit.
Yeah.
But there was one country's critics who loved it. Do you want to guess? It's very obvious.
What? France.
Yes.
Yeah.
French critics loved it from the start. Orson Welles, in particular, hated it.
I love Orson Welles so much.
Orson Welles, of course, did Citizen Kane.
Yeah.
And he's also involved in Mank.
Yeah.
Well, his
it's sort of about
likeness
is
so he said it was worse than Rear Window, and he also hated Rear Window.
Orson Welles was one of those guys that was just trashing people on the way out.
Oh yeah, there's interviews with him, like you can watch it on Twitter, YouTube, or whatever. He just trashes.
He just massacres all these old directors.
Yeah, which is kind of iconic.
Yeah.
Martin Scorsese, a young man during Vertigo's release, loved it. He's like, I don't know why, but I really like. All of us thought it was like crazy, like really good. Hitchcock said in an interview that it was his favorite film, but he blamed its initial failure.
I know this.
Do you know? On the fact that Jimmy Stewart, at 49, looked too old for 24-year-old Kim Novak to be his to be love interest.
To what I say, yeah.
Honestly, like, yeah, but at the same time, like, I feel like movies from that time period had that so often.
Yeah.
I did not find it to be like, oh my God.
It wasn't like weird or anything, but
I mean, looking back, it's like, yeah, that's weird.
It wouldn't happen today, and it shouldn't. Like, it's just unrealistic.
Right.
And I think that's what Hitchcock recognized after the fact. But you got to put Jimmy Stewart in the movie if he's available.
Here's the thing, though, when you get to the whole theme of the movie and stuff, and
it sort of fits.
The whole idea that it's about obsession,
controlling,
and he's kind of going mad the whole time. Like, who's to say that she was really in love with him this whole time anyway? Like, what's real, what's not? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, well,
you could kind of make that argument.
We can get to that.
Yeah, and the fact that it seems like, not that Jimmy Stewart was a bad-looking guy, but like the fact that it seems a little unrealistic age-wise kind of lends itself to that interpretation. So I don't know.
It just doesn't play with like him saying that he was in college with Midge and they're like 15 years apart.
Right.
Like that part, those parts of it don't play for me.
Right, totally. Commercially, the movie in its like original release made back its $2.5 million budget, but it wasn't considered a huge hit, especially by Hitchcock standards at that time.
Like I said, he was like on top of the world.
Yep. But eventually it did make $7.3 million. Critics overall have since changed their mind since its original release. Well, some because it was mixed. Now it's pretty much universal acclaim. I think it has like a 93% on Rotten Tomatoes. Vertigo has been high on Sight and Sound's best of list. So every 10 years, any year that ends in a two. They release a list of the best 100 movies, and they expand it to 250, right?
They have like the extra,
Yeah.
But the big list is the top 100.
Vertigo didn't make the list until 1982.
Really?
And it kept getting kind of like moving up a little bit. It started at not number 9, I think, in 1982. It wasn't on the list 72, wasn't on the list 62. And then in 1982, it was, I think, 9th or something.
Well, it was lost for a while.
And I talk about that too.
And that's probably why it came back later on into the lists.
It ranked number 1 in 2012,
yes.
Beating Citizen Kane, which had been up there for number 1 for a long time. And it is currently number 2. It was ranked number 2 in the 2022 list, behind an old, is it German film or French film? It's one of the
German, I think.
An old German film that is like some lady's name.
Jean Dielman.
And I'm like, okay, who chose? Like,
nope,
did a bunch
I'm wrong.
Of
it
people...
was the director was Chantal Ackerman is French.
I wonder, like, did a lot of people get together and be like, yeah, let's just like vote her?
Well, it was number 35 in 2012.
Right.
So
how does it jump that many?
How did Vertigo jump? It just, I don't know. It's something that people maybe rediscovered, or there was a re-release, or there was something, and people were like, you know what, this is the best ever.
It ranks high on many other critical lists. Vertigo does as well, including being number 9 on AFI's most recent top movies list. So maybe I got that confused. This Sight and Sound one.
What?
In 1982, where it was ranked, but it doesn't matter.
Oh, okay.
One interesting thing about Vertigo is that, as you mentioned, Tom, it was one of 5 Hitchcock films removed from circulation from 1973 until 1983. So you couldn't find it. You couldn't watch it.
No streaming.
Right. And there was no streaming. Right. I'm sure you could like get a bootleg copy of it somewhere,
maybe.
But I don't know.
I mean, there's a lot of movies that are just
sure
lost.
If you go to Kim's Video, right?
Yeah, Kim's Video. Shout out Sundance.
So it gained a lot of popularity when it was re-released in 1983, and then it was released on video in 1984. And then it became even more popular after its restoration in 1996. So, yeah, they restored it, adding back color and stuff that apparently was lost in the negatives to it. Which I think it was slightly controversial at the time, but now it's like, who cares?
Because it wasn't the original artistic whatever.
Yeah, like, okay.
Yeah.
And when the Library of Congress first began choosing films to include for preservation, for being culturally, historically, and aesthetically significant, in 1989, Vertigo was in the first batch of movies. So it was one of the first movies chosen to be preserved. Vertigo...
Soon to be Megan. Also preserved.
Megan will probably be chosen next year. It's kind of like the Baseball Hall of Fame. Like, you have to wait a certain amount of time, and then she's a first rounder. She's a Derek Jeter.
She's a first ballot. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like that. It's kind of like the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, where it's just an inevitable conclusion.
Yes.
Sort of like the Spice Girls.
Yep.
So. Sure. Vertigo has been seen as an extremely influential film. There have been remakes in different languages. There was a weird video game that came out in 2001 that got pretty bad reviews.
I didn't know that existed.
But Mulholland Drive, one of the big film bro movies, David Lynch classic, that heavily used.
It drew inspiration
drew inspiration from Vertigo, and
with the 2 women especially.
David Lynch explicitly said that.
Yeah.
And you can really see the influence in a lot of different movies, a lot of things, and that's just kind of the Hitchcock vibe too.
Yeah. But with Hitchcock, he goes a little bit above and beyond. It's very dreamlike and like creepy.
Well,
especially in the first half.
I do think that the dreaminess of it and the risks that he takes is why a lot of critics really like this movie. I don't know that it would be seen as like the best movie of all time if you're asking like audiences to write, if you're going that way, like the Rotten Tomatoes critics picks audience popcorn bucket. I don't know if...
What is the audience popcorn bucket?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. You'll have to look that up. But I will say this, that a sequel has been announced
Sequel or remake?
Oh, remake.
Like,
Imagine a sequel. That would be kind of wild. With Robert Downey Jr. attached to star, and Steve Knight is involved. So Steve Knight, he is probably best known to all of us as the creator of Peaky Blinders.
Yeah.
And then, weirdly enough, as you mentioned, he was one of the 3 creators of the original Who Wants to Be a Millionaire.
Yes, the British version, which
the British
became
version,
the American
which
version.
became the Regis Philbin version. I love.
Which became the Meredith Vieira version, which became the Cedric the Entertainer version, which became...
Yeah.
Okay, I've got the numbers on Vertigo. Like you said, Rotten Tomatoes, the critic score is a 92%. The audience score on 100,000 plus ratings, 93%.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, so just about even.
So, Tom, give us like a super brief summary of this very simple movie.
Very simple movie. Okay, I will do that. We start with a cool credit scene. It's a woman's face, and there's like a kaleidoscope of all the credits and everything's sort of going in like a... It's all just kind of a weird little setup. You should watch it on YouTube. It's really cool. I'm a sucker for a good opening
Me
set
too.
of opening credits.
I need a good opening set of credits to be like, this is the movie, man.
Yeah. After that, we jump right into it. There's a chase across the rooftops of San Francisco. There's a criminal. He's running away from a police officer, as well as Detective John Scotty Ferguson, played by Jimmy Stewart. The thief jumps between 2 buildings, followed by the officer. Scotty tries to make the jump, but he can't quite get his footing. He slips, hanging onto the gutter as his fear of heights kicks in. He looks down. You get that first...
Yeah, that was so crazy.
I was like, effect.
I literally was, right? You heard me.
Yeah. The police officer walks over and tries to help him up, but just slips, tumbles over Scotty, and falls to his death. We were like, what?
Shocking. Great opening scene, though.
Scotty apparently survives. Months after the incident, he reclines in the home of his friend Midge, played by Barbara Bel Geddes, a painter and fashion illustrator. She's concerned about Scotty because he's, retired from the police force due to his acrophobia, his fear of heights. Midge and Scotty apparently were engaged in college, but it was broken off. And it's clear that it kind of was probably Scotty that blew her off.
It's kind of interesting. Actually, I'm going to wait on this. I was going to ask your opinion on the Midge, like, why she's in this movie.
Yeah.
Okay, but I'll wait.
Well, I mean, yeah, we'll talk about it later.
We'll talk about it.
So they discuss an old college friend named Gavin Elster who wants to meet with Scotty. And Scotty goes to meet him, and Gavin is played by Tom Helmore, who maybe you know.
He was in 50 movies from 1941 to 90, like for a while, and then he just like did
dropped
nothing.
Off.
Yeah.
He's in the shipping business, and he married into that business, which leads him to talk to Scotty about his wife. He wants Scotty to tail his wife. While Gavin doesn't suspect infidelity, he hints that his wife has been possessed by something because she has become distant and distracted, roaming into the city and the surrounding area.
Okay, wait, but he's also like, oh my God, come like hang out in this like really beautiful room that is my office, but also looks like the cocktail hour space and Nina's in the park. If you've ever been to that North Jersey wedding venue. Do you remember when he said that?
Yeah.
Yeah. He was like, the mac and cheese bar is over here.
I somehow left this out of the plot summary. The no-nonsense Scotty initially dismisses the supernatural undertones of Gavin's worries, but he's nonetheless intrigued. He heads over to Ernie's restaurant, which we hit Ernie's a few times in this movie.
First of all, did you know this?
It's a real Ernie's
was
restaurant.
real, and it was like, that's what it looked like.
And Hitchcock used to go there all the time.
I am obsessed, and it closed in 1995, so I can't go there anymore.
Scotty spots Madeline Elster, Gavin's wife, played by Kim Novak, at Ernie's restaurant, and it's a lavish, like Scarlet-themed restaurant, and he's mesmerized by her platinum blonde hair, black dress, and green shawl.
She's gorgeous.
Green is the color of this movie.
Envy?
I guess, yeah, maybe. The next morning, Scotty stalks Madeline outside of her house, and she gets into her green car and drives off.
Oh, yeah.
Scotty,
and I even said, that's so smart that they use
a green car so you can see it. Scotty follows Madeline through the streets of San Francisco as she visits a flower shop, and she purchases a small bouquet. She heads over to a cemetery, and she stands at a grave inscribed with the words, Carlotta Valdez, born December 3rd, 1831, died March 5th, 1857.
I'm so sorry. I'm going to say a little fun fact here,
and we're in 1958, just so you remember that.
Right. Another fun fact here. They actually put a fake grave for, like, Carlotta. They built it or whatever, made it, and then they put it in that cemetery. Then eventually San Francisco was like, okay, this is, like, disrespectful because, like, it's become a tourist attraction for a fictional person at a real cemetery, so they took it out.
Okay. I didn't know they did that. That's cool.
Yeah.
I would have went. Scotty then tracks Madeline to the Palace of the Legions of Honor, which is an art museum where she stares at a portrait for hours. In the portrait is a bouquet of flowers much like the bouquet Madeline bought, and Madeline's hair is the exact same style as the woman's in the painting. Scotty discovers from the curator that the painting is titled Portrait of Carlotta, and he's given a catalog of the paintings. Finally, Scotty follows her to the McKittrick Hotel, where he sees her in a second-story window. He walks in, talks to the manager,
My
asks...
queen.
I love the manager.
Never to be seen again in this movie.
Yes.
I loved her.
He asks her who the occupant of the room is, and after a little bit of sort of back and forth, she reveals that the woman's name is Carlotta Valdez. She says, though, that Carlotta has not been in the room all day, although Scotty just saw her in the second-floor window.
You're lying.
So Scotty goes to see for himself, and when he gets there, sure enough, the room is empty, and the green car is gone from the front of the hotel.
That was spooky.
Scotty returns to Midge's house and asks her for a historian of the city. They visit the bookshop of a man named Pop Liebel and ask about the McKittrick Hotel. Pop tells Scotty that the hotel was originally a house built by a rich man for his mistress, Carlotta Valdez, and they had a child. However, the rich man eventually discarded Carlotta, keeping their child to raise with his childless wife. Carlotta went from depressed to insane and finally took her own life. Speaking with Gavin, Scotty learns that Madeline had begun to wear Carlotta's jewelry, particularly a ruby pendant shown in the painting, and that Carlotta was her great-grandmother, although Madeline doesn't know this.
That pendant's your little Chekhov's gun situation.
Yeah.
Comes back later.
The next day, after another visit to the portrait, Scotty follows Madeline near the Golden Gate Bridge, where she inexplicably dives into the water. Scotty dives in after her, saving her and bringing her unconscious back to his apartment. When Madeline wakes up, she's obviously alarmed, but Scotty explains the situation and reassures Gavin by phone that Madeline is at his apartment safe and sound. Gavin tells Scotty that Madeline is 26 years old, the same age Carlotta Valdez died by suicide. The next morning, Scotty trails Madeline through the streets again, only to find that she was heading where but to his house to give him a thank you letter. Scotty insists that they wander together, and they go to Big Basin Redwood State Park, which is a stand-in, I think, for Muir Woods.
Muir Woods, which I've been to, and it's so much fun. If you want to, there's a website. It's like Muir Woods Tours, and it's just like this guy, Tom, who takes you around. And it seems super sketchy, but it's not. He's like super nice, and he has his wife make a bagel sandwich, but like one, and then he splits it between everybody in the tour. It was like the best. I loved it.
So they're walking in the forest and they view a cross-section of a tree with the approximate dates of a bunch of historical events, and Madeline suddenly goes into a trance recounting the dates of Carlotta's birth and death, like through the tree rings. By the shore, Madeline reveals fragments of her vague memories. An empty grave with no name waiting for her, an empty room in which she sits alone, and finally a tower, bell, and garden in Spain. The pair kiss as the waves crash onto the rocks on the beach, and Scotty promises he will never leave her.
They're drama, dude.
He leaves her. Later, Madeline returns to Scotty's place and tells him of a dream of a tower, a bell, and a village again. And as she describes the location, Scotty realizes she means the San Juan Bautista, which is a mission that has been converted into a museum, and they drive there. When they arrive, Madeline explains she must do something, and they kiss again and express their love for one another. Scotty realizes when she enters the church that she is heading for the bell tower, and he gives chase. After a few flights of stairs, Scotty looks down and his vertigo sets in. Again, you get the finger trap shot, and he's paralyzed. He watches helpless in fear and horror as he hears a scream, and Madeline's body plunges to the tiles below. Madeline's dead. Scotty staggers out of the mission dumbfounded, though he's cleared of wrongdoing. It's a really great shot. It's like from like way above, and you see the authorities over like on the rooftop like tending to Madeline, and you see him like almost like an ant, like the size of an ant, like sneaking around the back of the.
Nobody does it like Hitchcock, man.
Yeah, it was really good. Gavin comforts Scotty. Oh wait, I missed one. Scotty. Yeah, so he has that little like trial thing, and the judge declares it a suicide, and Scotty doesn't face any penalties for it. Gavin comforts him, and he tells him that with the loss of his wife, he cannot stay in San Francisco, and so he ditches it for Europe. Scotty starts to have trouble sleeping. He sees an animated bouquet unravel. He dreams of seeing Carlotta at the hearing, and he walks into the cemetery to see an open grave. He falls into the grave, and his body lands next to Madeline's on the tiles of the mission, and he wakes up in a cold sweat. He's in a psych ward where Midge tries to comfort him, although he will not speak.
He's like catatonic.
Yeah. Several months later, he remains in the grip of an obsession. He visits the old Elster home and spots the green car, but the woman who approaches it is not Madeline. Same at Ernie's restaurant, same at the museum. While looking for a bouquet at a flower shop, he spots a brunette in a green dress who resembles Madeline, and he tails the woman back to her fifth-floor room at the Hotel Empire. When he knocks on the door, the woman is concerned, but after a conversation, she reveals her name to be Judy Barton. She's also played by...
She's like, hey there, I'm Judy.
I'm from Salina, Kansas.
I'm from Salina, Kansas, and I am kind of sassy.
But I look exactly like Kim Novak because I am
look
Kim
exactly
Novak.
the same, except I got some eyeliner,
Yeah.
dark hair, and a new attitude.
Yeah. Judy realizes that Scotty's heart is broken after their brief conversation, and she takes pity on him, agreeing to go to dinner at Ernie's.
Never would happen in real life.
After Scotty leaves, we get a flashback. Judy turns, literally like breaks the fourth wall.
I was like, first of all, I was on my phone, so Tom had to rewind it so I could rewatch it. And then I was like, this is crazy. Do you know that this scene
Yes.
right here, okay,
Yes.
it was originally the denouement,
Yes.
aka the end of the book.
Yeah.
And he put it right in 2/3 of the way through.
Yep.
Tell us what's revealed.
We get a flashback. Judy is Madeline, running up the bell tower stairs. At the top, Gavin Elster is there, holding the body of the real Madeline Elster, dead, dressed in the same outfit as Judy. It turns out it was the real Madeline's body that was thrown off of the tower, with Judy letting out the scream.
Which, by the way, we did not get at the first viewing.
Huh?
We did not get that at first.
No, we didn't. The 1958 of it all made me think that it was like a fake body that was that was thrown off.
Yeah.
Judy has apparently kept the gray suit she wore as Madeline in her closet, and she looks at it, and then she begins to write a letter to Scotty explaining the crime, but she tears it up. Judy and Scotty engage in a series of dates, and little by little, he begins to make Judy over in the image of Madeline.
That's weird. I'm sorry. It was very possessive man of it.
He searches obsessively for the gray suit and white gloves that Madeline used to wear, and he even convinces Judy to bleach her hair. Although Judy begs him to love her for herself, she is so in love with Scotty that she allows him to change her into Madeline. In love with, maybe not. I took this from a...
This is why, like, at first I was like, okay, this is my least favorite part of the movie because it's just not, there's no way she's in love with him. Like, he's weird. Like, he's acting weird. He's not, like, they have nothing in common. It didn't show any time of her getting to know him, really.
Yeah.
But then I thought about it. I'm like, this is maybe this is from Scotty's perspective.
Right.
So he thinks that she's so in love with him, whatever.
And it's more like she's scared of him.
Right.
And she's intimidated.
Right.
Yeah.
And I know she wrote in the letter, but she tore the letter up, and he never ended up reading the letter.
No.
So maybe that's his.
That was an exposition
right
thing.
Yeah. So I don't know. I don't know if I liked the whole, like, oh, she's in love with him thing, or
Yeah.
if it's an interesting view of like, well, that's what his perception is.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a good question. Scotty insists that Judy pin her now platinum blonde hair up exactly how Madeline did, and she does, completing the transformation. She like walks out of the bathroom, and there's like and it's like really dreamy, and there's like a green glow, again green,
a little foggy, like
yeah.
San Francisco itself, maybe.
And they embrace and kiss. Well, there's a green neon light outside, and I think that's what the
Is it kind of reminded me of the Great Gatsby green light,
yeah, something like that, which is like longing and things like that, whatever.
or the Lord song.
Yeah, exactly. So as they embrace and kiss, the room turns into the mission where Scotty last kissed Madeline, and then back to the apartment. It was kind of like a little, like what he was thinking, kind of deal.
Wow.
A couple of nights later,
That was a cool little.
A couple of nights later, they decide to go back to Ernie's, as one does.
Heck yeah, man.
Judy dresses up.
Also, wait, hold on. Ernie's is an Italian American restaurant where they just give you like a ton of like Italian food. So just imagine like every day they're like, I need more lasagna.
Yeah, we got to get some more fettuccine Alfredo from Ernie's. Judy dresses up and puts on the same ruby pendant in the portrait of Carlotta, which sends off alarm bells in Scotty. He becomes distant, and he drives the two not to Ernie's, but down the coast past the redwoods.
Oh, gosh.
They arrive, of course, at the mission, where Scotty forces Judy to reenact Madeline's last moments, their final kiss, Madeline's parting words, the whole thing. He relentlessly sort of nudges Judy up the stairs, and he's like really menacing and intimidating. And he discovers in the process, as he looks down, that there's no vertigo. He's good.
Which Midge said earlier that, like in that second scene or whatever, an act of trauma gave you that vertigo or whatever. It might take another act of trauma to erase it.
Yeah. He reveals to Judy that her putting on the necklace that belonged to Carlotta is what gave her away. Not the fact that she looks exactly like Madeline. But anyway, whatever. As the pair reach the top of the bell tower, Scotty finally puts the final pieces of the puzzle together, realizing that Judy was the fake all along, and he never actually knew the real Madeline. It was always Judy.
Yep.
Scotty realizes that Gavin set him up as a witness in the murder of Gavin's own wife. He pulls Judy to the top of the tower over her protest as she pleads that she has fallen in love with him, and they kiss. Suddenly, though, a strange woman appears in the shadows, startling Judy, who steps backwards and plummets to her death off the ledge. We were like, what?
The nun, it's just a nun who's just like, hey, what are you guys doing?
A nun steps into the light, and in the final shot, as the nun tolls the death bell, a devastated Scotty stands frozen, looking down off the ledge, having lost the same woman twice.
It was wild. Vertigo.
Vertigo. You know what I love about that? As he's looking down, you know he's having the vertigo, but the restraint there, the direction doesn't show it, but you know he's having it right there because you can tell by
Back
the way
again.
he's like.
Did you know that there was originally an extra scene?
No.
So apparently in an added scene at the end, he goes back, he's in Midge's apartment and they're like having a drink and they're saying that like, oh, they're extraditing the husband, Gavin, back. And then they just look out the window. And Hitchcock was like, no, I don't want this.
No.
But the studio was like, no, we need to like make it so that the bad guy has consequences.
Yeah.
And he's like, I don't care.
It's not about the bad guy.
Right, exactly. And
Yeah.
so he won and they didn't keep it in.
Yeah, this is a character study. It's not about Gavin.
Yeah. It's like, wow, that's such a good movie.
Yeah.
Okay. So, you know what? Let's start with the Midge question. So, yeah, Midge is like Scotty's friend. They dated and were even engaged for like
longtime friends.
Longtime friends with a history, whatever. And then, okay, you didn't mention in the plot summary because let's face it, Midge isn't even that important.
Yeah, I had some of it in that I just kind of blew by.
Yeah, she painted a picture.
Yeah,
of,
she's a painter.
Yeah, of like her as Carlotta, like almost as a joke. I don't get it.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I didn't get the.
And he got mad and left, and she was like, "Stupid, stupid."
Yeah, it was a weird scene.
And then that was like the last you saw of her.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I thought that was kind of weird.
No, I think there was another scene with her, but it was just like it wasn't
I know when he left Madeline's apartment.
Yeah.
And she was there, and she was like, "Oh, Johnny O." She called him Johnny, like randomly.
Well, because they're a different type of friend than everyone else who calls him Scotty.
Okay.
You know, they're deeper friends than that.
Actually, that's like the exact like big reveal in a book I just read.
Okay.
Where it was like, oh, his actual name is this because he was closer friends with them and they called him by a nickname.
Maybe they got
and
that
the whole
from Vertigo.
time it's like this nickname, but it's really him. So that makes sense. So my question is like,
what's the point?
What's Midge doing? Like, do you think she was necessary? Because I think she was, and I'll give you a reason why.
Well, she's there to move the plot along.
Okay.
She's there to give the bookshop guy. She's there to give.
Oh yeah, Pop Langle.
Yeah, exactly. She's there to give. She's there to bounce the ideas off of. You know.
Okay, I think that's an interesting perspective. I took a different approach to my thoughts.
Okay, we're different people, so that's okay.
I think that she is the grounding moment of like, this is the real life woman that this guy could be with.
Yeah.
And he's so oblivious towards this like really beautiful, accomplished friend that he really appreciates and likes and could have a real and loves him clearly. Yeah. And he could be in a happy have a happy life with, and instead he's so blinded by his own obsession with this fake imaginary woman that doesn't even exist, and pushes her completely to the side to go for this fantasy that just was never going to come true.
Yeah.
And I like that. I like that juxtaposition, especially because Midge doesn't look like Kim Novak, but there's similarities there. And like Midge just like wears glasses.
Yeah.
But it's I think a super interesting addition.
She's also like almost like a stand-in for a mother figure because she calls herself they call her. He's like, oh, stop being so motherly. Like they're like sort of like playfully like jabbing at each other, and he like calls her his mom or something. So like, I think there's something there too, but I didn't think too much about Midge, but I like that perspective.
Thanks. So yeah, you mentioned in the plot summary that Gavin is Scotty's like friend from college, and he's like, hey, I want to talk to you. Like, you want to get together? Like, if a random college acquaintance right now, or even in 5-10 years, just randomly like Facebook message you or Instagram DM'd you or whatever, or like had your number and texted you and was like, "Hey, do you want to get together? I want to talk to you about something." Would you do it?
It depends on who it is, of course. And it depends on, like, if they wanted me to do something law-related that I was involved in practicing,
Oh, okay.
I would think about it.
Okay.
It depends on who it is, though. I mean, it's definitely, I would definitely go in a little bit guarded because, like, what's going on here? Why now? And why don't we talk normally?
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
Especially if you're living in the same city.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it's a city, so it's not like
Still.
that. But if you're an old college buddy, why haven't we, gone out to the Japanese tea garden,
Right, exactly. My answer is no.
Okay.
I said here, boy, nobody does it like Hitchcock. What's your favorite Hitchcock movie that you've seen so far? First of all, which ones have you seen?
Okay, so I've seen Vertigo.
Yeah.
I've seen Rear Window.
Yeah, it's a good one. Grace
I've
Kelly.
seen The Birds.
Oh, you have? Tippi Hedren?
In high school.
Oh.
I also saw Rebecca in high school.
Oh.
I've seen Psycho.
Yeah, it's a great movie.
I've seen like his big ones. I've seen like those.
You've
are
seen
like,
more than me.
Yeah.
Have you seen North by Northwest?
I have not, but
Me
I know
either.
obviously the iconic plane scene.
I thought that was in Vertigo, and I'm like, why isn't
where the planes at?
Literally. So which one's your favorite, Tom?
The one I think about the most is Rebecca.
Yeah, you talk about Rebecca all the time.
It's a really good. I love ghost stories. I love those types of movies where it's like, is this real? Does it exist?
Well, that's like this one.
Yeah, in a lot of ways. This one I just haven't had enough time to sit with it yet.
Yeah.
This one could eventually be my favorite, but I mean, right now I think it's Rebecca. It's just got such a vibey movie. It's hard for me to really.
I have to watch it.
Like, yeah, we'll do it for the podcast.
Okay.
Now that we've opened up the Hitchcock floodgates. But yeah, I mean, maybe it's not as good as I remember. Maybe I just watched it when I was 17 and really loved it. But yeah, I mean, I just love stories like that. I love, like, even when we were reading stuff in English and like I wasn't really into the books, like I loved reading Henry James's Turn of the Screw.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's a ghost story. I love ghost stories.
The creepy stuff always kids love the creepy stuff.
The creepy but not scary stuff.
Yeah.
Like, I've always liked that more than I've liked things like straight up horror movies, which I do like now. But when I was a kid, I was more into like the eerie kind of stuff.
I like that too. I've always loved that. Psycho is probably my favorite.
I didn't like Psycho when I watched it the first time.
You gotta rewatch it.
But I watched it a very long time ago.
And I'm sure you watched
In a contrarian.
it.
Well,
in a contrarian because you were kind of like that.
Two things here. One, a contrarian way, and two, I watched it expecting a horror movie.
I was going to say that you were expecting it to be super scary
Yeah, and
in
it wasn't.
2023.
Well, in 2006, 2007,
right.
let's say.
Right. And that's just not the vibe.
Yeah, I think I would like it a lot more now.
It's so funny though because my grandmom said that she saw Psycho with my grandpa at a Mom and Kathy and Pop at a drive-in theater, and she said it was the scariest movie.
I believe
she
it.
was terrified.
I believe it.
And I was like, "That's amazing."
Things were just so different back then in terms of.
Right.
I mean, horror
and it is a scary movie. It actually is.
Well,
like,
it's
so disturbing.
It's just not scary. Like, what's on screen is not necessarily scary.
Right.
It's what it
the
means.
Ideas.
And yeah.
But I love that one. And honestly, Rear Window slaps.
Rear Window is awesome.
It's so good.
It's another one where Jimmy Stewart. I made this comment to you when we were watching the movie, and I think of the 4 Jimmy Stewart movies I've seen, which I mentioned. In It's a Wonderful Life and in The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance, Jimmy Stewart is your white meat all-American
everyman.
Everyman. He's in Liberty Valance. It's him and John Wayne, so he's like the smarter, more polished version, and Wayne is obviously the grittier cowboy version. Yeah, and so he's like your white meat baby face, your John Cena of those two movies. But
It's a Wonderful Life is so good.
But in the 2 Hitchcock movies, he's mentally deteriorates. He's like he's the villain of this movie, really. I mean, Gavin is, but like in our narrative, he's the villain.
Yeah.
And in Rear Window, he goes nuts.
Yeah, I love him.
And there's a murder in that too that he like
did you see it or did you not? Like, oh, it's so good.
I think it's interesting. I don't know Stewart's entire career, obviously. I've only seen less than a handful of movies, but it feels like Hitchcock drew something different out of him, which is a cool thing.
It is nice when you have actors that when they work with one particular person, you see a new side.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Good answers, Tom. Okay. Well, speaking of like different movies, and this is one that like I did not want to give you any previous time because I want top of your head. This movie is very San Francisco from the start. Like, I knew like that it was in San Francisco. It just has what?
Go ahead.
It just, you're going to say the room. It just has a Bay Area vibe. Like, San Francisco just has a very distinct look, feel. You can almost just like sense the sea air and the fog.
We've also both been there multiple times.
We have been there multiple times.
So we are
once together, once each separate.
I went
you
twice
went
separate.
twice separate. And I love that city.
I love San Francisco so much.
It's so distinctive and singular.
Yeah.
I just love it. And I said here, it does a great job at setting it there. I always like movies where the setting is almost like a character. It happens a lot with New York City.
Yeah.
It happens a lot with like Philadelphia.
The Hughes movies in
Chicago, New Orleans.
Yeah.
Like if there's a movie set in New Orleans, you know.
Well, it's
like
funny.
Girls Trip.
Well, it's funny because Bernard Herrmann, the guy who wrote who did the score, he said that the movie didn't feel like a San Francisco movie, that it felt like a seedier type of movie than that. So he imagined not San Francisco but New Orleans when he wrote the score.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
And you know what? I kind of got a little New Orleans-y vibe from it too, with the ghost storyness of it and the kind of dark history.
New Orleans, another one of my favorite and least favorite cities.
And there you go. I just feel, and again, it being filmed at least partially on location helped with it feeling so Bay Area. So, I also said it's a great idea to give a man acrophobia in a city with such big hills.
Well, it's funny.
I don't know if you noticed that, but
Yeah.
I was like, oh my God, imagine driving down those big hills.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of scenes where he is driving.
So Ebert, in his review, said he talks about how stylistically amazing this movie is, and he says how Hitchcock does a lot of things with falling, and he says that you'll notice some of the more subtle things that the movie sneaks in the concept of falling, as when Scotty only drives down San Francisco's hills, never up.
There you go. And of course, Hitchcock is kind of known like he's not the cinematographer, but his direction, almost a voyeuristic quality where you're kind of you're almost like a bystander watching the action happen.
Yeah.
That camera view is very specific in that way a lot of times, and the fact that you're going down so many hills and you're part of that helps to create that sense of vertigo and acrophobia.
Disorientation.
It's so
stuff
good.
Like that, yeah.
So, San Francisco seemed to be the perfect setting for this movie. What are some other good San Francisco movies?
Well, The Room. It's definitely San Francisco, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course. Remember you pick a car during the scene where it just shows the Golden Gate Bridge and you say, go. And you hope that it gets all the way across. And during one of the in-between scenes, because they show it like 75 times.
Yes, the same footage over and over again. Well, we talked about it earlier today because I'm reading Quentin Tarantino's book, and one of the movies, it's basically all of his, like a lot of his favorite movies from the 70s, and each chapter is a different movie, and I'm on the second chapter, which is Dirty Harry, which also takes place in San Francisco. Mm-hmm. So that's another one. Not really off the top of my head because I just read it this morning.
Well, it is off the top of your head though.
But yeah, no, that's another one. And I watched that movie again a while ago.
I've never seen it.
And I liked it, but I don't really remember it being super San Francisco. I'm sure it is. I just watched it when I was younger. Those are the three that come to mind.
Okay. I think of Zodiac.
Oh yeah.
Speaking of Fincher, Mank vibes.
Yeah.
But I actually like Zodiac. And sorry, Mank. I think of Milk.
Yes, absolutely.
Harvey Milk,
Yeah.
San Francisco.
Yep.
And I think of The Princess Diaries.
Okay.
Miracles happen.
Yeah, which I have not seen.
We're doing that for the podcast.
Did you look up a list of movies by any chance?
I did afterwards.
Oh, okay.
And there were like a ton.
Yeah.
And of course you have like the Escape from Alcatraz ones and all that, but like I don't
yeah.
really count those because those are just like so obvious. It's like having a movie called San Francisco. Like isn't there? No, it's Meet Me in St. Louis.
Oh yeah, Big Trouble in Little China.
Yeah, that's San Francisco.
Yeah.
I saw.
Bullet 1968, which was the first chapter of the Tarantino book.
Is 48 Hours San Francisco?
Yes, it is.
Uh-huh.
The Last Black Man in San Francisco.
Yeah, that is.
Yeah.
Well,
I guess a lot of noirs.
Are we allowed to watch that anymore?
Last Black Man. Oh, Jonathan Majors.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
Good movie though.
Maltese Falcon. So another noir.
Mm-hmm. There's some noirs.
Mrs. Doubtfire.
Yeah, I never saw Mrs. Doubtfire.
Really?
It's a blind spot for me.
Yeah, I've seen it. It's good. I mean, yeah.
I love Robin Williams.
There's a lot of these movies that, well, I mean, The Room, but of course The Disaster Artist as well.
Of course.
Yeah, there's a lot of movies here. The Birds as well.
Yeah. So I thought that was I loved the setting.
What are your, I'm going to piggyback off that. What are some of your favorite things or least favorite things about San Francisco?
Okay, so let's see. Some of my favorite things include, number one, I loved Golden Gate Park.
Yeah.
So when we went to San Francisco on our weird honeymoon, we had a weird honeymoon.
We did.
We flew into Chicago. We spent 2 days in Chicago. Then we took an Amtrak across the rest of the United States, and we stopped in Utah, which was the biggest mistake of our lives. Salt Lake City is not my favorite city at all. Speaking of, is there any good movies that are set in Salt Lake City that you can think of off the top of your head?
Yeah.
Like?
Yeah,
exactly.
South Park, the movie.
That's
Bigger, longer, and
Colorado.
uncut.
That's Colorado.
Oh, yeah.
So anyway.
I'm going to look it up. Go ahead.
So we went there, and then we went to Yellowstone, which rocked.
Yellowstone was my favorite part of the whole trip.
It was amazing.
And I like I said, I love San Francisco, but
And Chicago.
yeah, Chicago was good.
It rained the whole time. But
Yeah.
it's,
I would have to go back there.
Me too. And then we went to San Francisco, and all on the Amtrak. It was wild. And so San Francisco, we were supposed to go to Yosemite, but then they canceled the bus trip the day before.
Yeah.
So we were
we didn't mind. We were
tired.
Toast. We were toast at that point.
So I was like, okay, what can we do with no notice? Because we had no notice. So I was like, all right, let's go to Golden Gate Park. And it was so nice. We took an Uber to a coffee shop right outside, and I got a horchata iced latte, which was amazing. And then we went into the Golden Gate Park, and we walked all the way down to the ocean, and you got seafood and I got Mexican food, and we ate by the water. And then we walked all the way back, and we went to the Japanese garden. It was just such a lovely time. And then we walked all the way up and down the big hills.
Got ice cream?
Before that, we went to an Italian restaurant in an old house up on the tippity top of San Francisco. And we then we got ice cream. It was so lovely. I also loved my other trip with my girlfriends. We went to Alcatraz, which was awesome. It was so fun. And we did a whole walking tour where you put your earbud in, and he's like, hey, I'm Al Capone or whatever. I forget who was there, but it was so
It was Al Capone.
He was like, hey, I'm Al Capone. Hey, where's my shorts? Right? Al Capone washes my shorts. Wasn't that a kid's book? And so then we did that, and it was so fun. And then I also loved Muir Woods that I went to with my girlfriends again. Hit up Tom at muirwoodstours.com. He only takes cash, and he picks you up in a van, but it's totally fine. At least our trip was.
That's a great slogan for the company, but it's totally fine.
But it's totally fine. So those are some of my favorite things that I loved about San Francisco. Some of the things I didn't like as much. Well, I think that first of all, my calves burned so bad. I think one of the things,
it's a physically taxing city if
is.
you're going to travel.
One of the things, every single hotel is extraordinarily expensive.
The cost of living out there is really, really high.
The hotels were wild price wise. And honestly, they added a huge tax every time, a tourism tax to any time you sit down to eat. So it costs $5 million.
Yeah.
I never find I just haven't been to the right places in San Francisco. I've been to a couple really, really good restaurants there, but then some that were just okay.
You also don't eat Asian food, and you don't eat seafood.
That is true.
So those are two of the top cuisines.
Right.
In San Francisco.
So I'm blaming more me about this.
Yeah.
But I have been to a couple really, really good restaurants there. State Bird is super good, and I had this amazing ice cream sandwich there. It was olive oil ice cream, shortbread, and it came with green onions, blackberries. It was the most wild thing ever. It was so delicious. But yeah, I think that some of the touristy stuff isn't the best. Like
I just like to go and hang out in the city. I don't really.
yeah, exactly. And that's why I like Golden Gate Park so much. But like if you go to the pier, like 39 or whatever,
Oh, like Fisherman's Wharf area.
the Fisherman's Wharf
Yeah,
area,
it is what it is.
super touristy, but like kind of like they sell like cheap tchotchkes.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Like
it's a little Jersey
little,
Shore-ish.
It's a little Jersey. It's a
Yeah.
little too Jersey Shore-ish
Yeah.
for my liking
Yeah.
in San Francisco. You know what I mean? So that some areas are better than others. You gotta apparently like there's a lot of break-ins to cars and stuff.
Yeah.
But one of our friends, family friends, experienced that unfortunately.
Yep.
There. Yeah, but I mean that happens everywhere. So that, whatever. But I love San Francisco. What
It's
about
great.
you? What's your
Well, I mean,
best and
you
worst?
hit a lot of the stuff that we did, and then the other two times I went for football games. So I saw the 49ers play the Giants in the NFC Championship game in the old stadium at Candlestick, which was right near Fisherman's Wharf,
That's cool.
up in that area. They don't play there anymore. I don't know if the stadium's still there. They moved to Santa Clara, which is like 20 minutes outside the city. But when my brother and I went back to see them play the Packers in like 2019 NFC Championship game, we stayed in like the same spot. So we did the San Francisco stuff anyway, and then for the game we drove out to Santa Clara.
Yeah.
And we just did like we didn't do like a lot of the touristy stuff. We
You
didn't
did
do
a Rainforest Cafe, right?
we did do the first time we did do a Rainforest Cafe. We did sushi. We did like things that I didn't do with you as much.
Yeah.
We didn't really do a lot of the touristy stuff. We went to the Alcatraz gift shop, but we didn't go to Alcatraz.
Yeah, you got me a little seal.
Yeah.
And the seal, he was a little seal baby stuffed like animal, and then he had a little black and white prison outfit, and it said "rejected, too cute."
Yeah. Yeah. Same with the Golden Gate Bridge. I got my parents a Golden Gate Bridge snow globe.
Love that.
And I didn't. I mean, I saw the Golden Gate Bridge, but I didn't go to Golden Gate Park that time.
Shout out my hometown for making the wire for the Golden Gate Bridge.
Yeah. Washington A. Roebling.
It's my guy.
Was I right?
Yeah.
Okay. So I love San Francisco, and it has issues as well, of course. I also liked when we met up with my friend from high school there.
That was
Remember
when we went to just like a
random
sports
bar
bar.
and hung out for like 4 hours.
That was a blast.
Yeah.
Oh my god, I loved it.
It was funny because I didn't speak to him. It's a guy I knew from my high school, and I didn't talk to him that much in high school.
Yeah.
And we just hung out for like 4 hours, and
I guess isn't that kind of like what I just asked earlier in the episode?
yeah,
There's somebody from your past, like
yeah.
and we just
no,
hung out.
Well, no, because he didn't ask me for anything.
That's true.
I had actually been in touch with him the second time I went with my brother, and we didn't get to meet up. So I wanted to make sure I did it the next time, and we did, and it was nice.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I love that.
I like when you talk to people that you haven't talked to in a while, and it's like,
And it's like in a random place.
yeah,
That's cool.
it was a really cool experience.
It was. I loved our honeymoon. I wouldn't have changed a single thing.
No, I would have. The pandemic. Our original plan was to go to
Some of the Scandinavian countries.
yeah, our original plan was Denmark, Norway, Sweden, and then the pandemic hit, and we ended up in freaking Iowa and Nebraska, and
Hey, listen, it's something that I will never ever do again.
I will never
in
do
my
again,
life,
but I'm glad I did.
But I'm so glad I did it. We had a great time. We had fun. All right. What genre would you put this into? Would you put it as a psychological thriller?
Psychological noir thriller.
Okay. There's a lot of controversy on whether it's actually a noir or not.
Well, because it doesn't have like the smoky rooms
it's
and
colorful.
Yeah.
So you would still consider it a
Well,
noir?
it's colorful in part because of the restoration. We don't know what really the color was like previously.
Vibes. Yeah. I just thought that this was a very beautifully shot movie. And then I looked up like most beautiful movies, and this was on 0 of those lists. And I'm like, okay, well,
What were they? Were they like older movies, or were they like
they were like The Searchers,
like Dune? Oh, okay.
Dune.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was like other stuff.
We didn't see that. We don't watch this. That's another John Ford.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
It was stuff like that. I'm like, okay. But I guess I have to watch other movies that I didn't watch.
That's kind of the point, isn't it?
So what's the best thing about this movie? Did you like it, first of all?
I really did like it.
Okay.
It's not. I don't know if I would put it as number 1 on the greatest movies of all time list.
I know.
because
I was kind of.
There are very obvious issues.
I was
with
like,
it, I
oh,
think.
slay. Like, good for them. But
Yeah.
I don't know. I definitely don't think
I would
put that
change
there.
a lot about this movie.
Okay, first, what's your favorite thing, best thing about this movie that you're like loved, not changing it?
I love that there was the reveal in the middle of the movie
Yeah,
that she was Madeline.
good stuff.
I also loved, as I sort of alluded to, the ghost story elements of the first half of the movie.
Gorgeous.
I loved the painting stuff. Like, paintings freak me out.
Dorian Gray.
Old classical paintings freak me out. The Mona Lisa, they all freak me out.
She's no eyebrows.
Yeah. Is she smiling? It's like, I don't know. Something about those old pictures that like stare at you, like they Scooby-Doo me, you know? They're always looking at me.
Love that.
Those types of things are really effective for me.
Great. What is your least favorite thing or things about this movie that you would change, you think didn't work, you're confused, you're like, what?
As you mentioned earlier, there is not nearly enough time to establish Madeline, Judy, and Scotty's relationship.
Yeah.
It's like 2 days.
Yeah.
There's not nearly enough time for that.
Right.
That's my main gripe with it. And my other gripe with it is probably that there's a lot of extra time, I feel like, that could be
so
filled
much
with.
Ernie's.
Yeah, no, there should be more Ernie's. We need more Ernie's. I don't know. I think it is a really well put together movie, but there's I think the score is great.
Yeah.
But I don't know, maybe just there's a lot of like repetition in it.
Yeah.
Which is sort of part of the downward spiral.
I know.
So it's like there's an artistic reason for it.
That's the problem. Everything that I have that I'm like, I don't think I liked this or that. There's an artistic specific, like, I think could be a very, like, a reason for it. So it's like, I can't really say I didn't like that.
Yeah.
Because
you don't have a better
idea.
idea.
Well, not even that, but like there was a specific reason for it. Do you know what I mean?
It's a choice.
Like, we're not watching like a Hallmark movie where I could be like, the acting wasn't good. You know,
go
what
listen
I mean?
to our Falling for Christmas episode.
Hey, that's number one. That's
It's on Netflix. Yeah.
Number two, Lindsay Lohan's Queen.
Hey, I didn't say anything. I said go
Mother
listen to the
to be.
episode.
But like this, it's harder to say because, like, Hitchcock's one of those, like, auteurs.
One of those guys that is way smarter than I will ever be.
So it's like, I thought the same thing. Like, oh, Madeline and Scotty, first of all, why would she like him? Whatever. But again, when you look at it from the perspective of this is a guy in a downward spiral, you can't trust him. He's an unreliable narrator. You can't trust that what you're watching and seeing is actually reality. Then I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool though.
There's also a theory that the entire movie is him hanging on the from the roof.
Also,
and
really,
that the rest of the movie is that.
Right. Like, that's
like
a vibe.
His life flashing, like something flashing before his eyes.
Like, that's crazy.
Yeah.
And then, like, the repetition stuff. Like, yeah, do we need to see him driving down another hill? But yeah, we kind of do, because that helps establish that mood.
And sit with him. Well,
Right.
I will give you this. I didn't love Kim Novak.
You didn't?
She was good.
She's so gorgeous though.
Well, yeah. Well, that's kind of the point.
Uh-huh.
She was good. I liked her a lot more as Judy than as Madeline.
Really? Well, first of all, when she was Madeline, she had Keira Knightley mouth, which works on Keira Knightley, but not on many others.
Yeah. And I might say something a little bit controversial here.
Never.
I understand that it's the product of the time. It's the product of what movies were like back then. But Jimmy Stewart is so Hollywood and everything. Like the words that he and the way that he says the words are so like, blah, see, like sometimes
and then he pulls his thing when his pants are up to here.
Yeah, and he's got the suspenders.
Like,
Yeah, and sometimes it takes me out of some stuff.
It's just the old school movies.
Yeah, but it doesn't really happen to me with all old school movies. But
because you watch a lot more than I do nowadays.
For some reason with him in particular, he's just so. Like, even in Liberty Valance, like him against John Wayne, they're two totally different actors. And he has that sort of like polished vibe, which works for the movie. But I don't know. Sometimes he sort of I sit down and I'm like,
takes you out of it.
I'm watching a movie, rather than I'm experiencing this art,
Feel that. I'm just like,
and that's just nitpicking. He's great.
It's such a problem for me that you started watching. You're in your movie watching era.
Yeah.
And
welcome.
A little while ago, like a couple years ago, I had seen so many more movies than you, and I was so much better at like not necessarily movie trivia, but like kind of like I know so many people and like random stuff that people are in, and you are like catching up.
It's a different thing. Like I could probably hit you with more, and I'm not an expert by any means, but I could probably hit you with more like 50s, 60s, 70s stuff. You can hit me more with 2010s, 2000s, really 2000s, and 90s stuff. Like it's like we have different areas of expertise.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't consider myself an expert on any of these early time periods, but just by comparison.
I consider myself an expert in like I know that person from X.
Yeah.
I'm pretty good at that.
Yeah.
Like if I see something in a movie, I'm like, or a TV show, I'm like, well, they were in this movie.
Yeah.
Like random.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, the difference is you have a lot of time downstairs during the day with the baby, which of course you're not just sitting around, you're
right.
parenting a child. But, you know, there's a lot of Below Deck. There's a lot of Vanderpump Rules. There's a lot of Housewives, which is fine. But you could catch up if you wanted to.
Oh, I am so sorry. Like okay, but like I also watched that Collector's show on Netflix.
Okay.
I watched the Sarah Lawrence cult docuseries.
These are all fine.
And I also am in the middle of Junior Bake Off.
I'm not criticizing
High
you.
class.
What I'm saying is, if you wanted to catch up, there's opportunities to catch up.
Okay, first of all, catch up. Are you joking? You mean mustered? Like mustered up enough energy to do anything in my life because I had a baby.
Oh man,
I can hardly mustered up enough to
not slap me in the face right now.
like literally, like the part in the movie where he's like in a psych ward, like
staring straight ahead. You literally said this is like me all day.
I'm just like, what is it? A freaking
and
year
I'm like,
pass?
I'm like playing Mozart in the background, like Midge being like, "Oh, it's okay, honey, you're gonna be great," and you're just like staring straight ahead, glassy eyed.
Like literally, our child has slept through the night every night for the past like 3 months, and I still am like, how am I gonna catch up on sleep?
Yeah,
like I'm still
maybe by not recording a podcast. 10 o'clock at night.
I'm like, we're making this one short, and I'm like going on about mustard jokes.
All right, what's the best scene in this movie?
That's hard. Honestly, I like the stalking scene. It wasn't stalking. It was like PIing.
His first, like the first like third of the movie like that time.
And I know people were like, "Oh, it really picks up the second half."
Well,
but I kind of liked
the plot picks
beginning.
up. The plot twists and the plot beats pick up in the second half, but the first half is more filled with the tension.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
And I liked the first scene where he's jumping and
with the chase.
That was wild.
The chase is on.
The chase is on.
That's for nobody. That reference is for no one.
Sarah Haynes fans.
If Sarah Haynes is listening, we got you.
Okay.
My two are, I like those, but my two are the dream sequence.
Of course it is. I was gonna say that you were
freaky
gonna say
dream
that.
sequence.
Of course you're gonna pick that.
And the sequence from when she puts on the pendant through the end.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, I also liked when they were at Ernie's.
Well, yeah, all the Ernie scenes.
I like any time where they're just vibing. Like I liked when he was in Midge's apartment. Her apartment was cool.
Yeah, it was.
I just
that's a real apartment. Like that's a real, like that apartment is like can oversees the city.
I love that.
Yeah, and it was, I think the building was open until like 2019 or something.
So cool.
Yeah.
I would love to go and do like a self-guided Vertigo.
Yeah, but everything's gone now
tour.
except for like the redwoods, and probably the mission is probably still there. But the mission,
like Ernie.
the bell tower. Doesn't exist. That was put in post.
Imagine
at the mission.
Imagine if my aunt's dog owned that restaurant.
Ernie.
The dog Ernie.
Oh man. Do you have any best quotes?
All
right, so.
As if I remember any quotes ever except for like iconic ones. And honestly, it was kind of like there's no real iconic quotes.
I don't remember them either, but I wrote them down.
I didn't know that I was supposed to do this. You didn't tell me.
I asked you for a best scene and a best quote for each of the last like 5 episodes.
I never know, and I never have an answer.
Best quote, I have 2, of course, because picking up the slack here. I have Gavin says, "Do you believe?" Right in the beginning when he's like asking about like him to follow her, he says, "Do you believe that someone out of the past, someone dead, can enter and take possession of a living being?"
He was like, "No."
He was like, "No," and that's exactly what happens to him.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's.
What?
Right? And my other one,
That's wild.
my other one is towards the end. Scotty says, "One doesn't often get a second chance. I want to stop being haunted. You're my second chance, Judy. You're my second chance." It's very like desperate.
It's also not true.
It's also no, it was. He just screwed up that chance too, thanks to that nun.
The movie is not funny.
No, except for Ernie's. No, I think a lot of Hitchcock stuff is pretty humorless.
Really?
Yeah,
I think he's just funny looking.
he is.
So I'm like, he's kind of funny. Like,
Yeah.
but no, his movie.
Where's the slapstick in The Birds?
There's no crazy fun stuff in Psycho. You mean?
Did you recast?
Oh no, I forgot. Who's gonna direct? That's the real question. If you're recasting,
Well, I think David Fincher, obviously, with again third Mank reference of the
Can
episode. David Fincher owes his career to freaking Hitchcock.
Mank. First of all, enough Mank. Please, no more Mank. I'm manked out.
Thank you very much. Baz Luhrmann.
Actually, that'd be kind
Baz
of.
Luhrmann.
That would be a very unique
Vertigo.
take.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know.
What about who did Robert Eggers
Who did like The Northman and The Witch?
and to the Lighthouse?
The Lighthouse, yeah.
Yeah, I pick him.
I think he's doing a Nosferatu remake next, which
Nosferatu.
it's actually he's just remaking the SpongeBob episode.
I think that is
Werner Herzog can do Vertigo.
I love Werner Herzog. Sad beige movies for sad beige people.
Why don't we let Chad Stahelski, who did the John Wick movies, do Vertigo?
That would be an interesting.
Turn it into a completely different thing.
That would be interesting.
Yeah, those are some good ones.
Why not Olivia Wilde? Don't worry, darling.
Gavin can be Harry Styles.
Oh no.
Okay, those are my questions. Discussion. Let's see. Any good ones? What did I have to say here? I wrote, "There's only one Johnny in movies to me," which is of course
Room.
Johnny from
How
The
come
Room.
there's so many Johnny famous characters in San Francisco?
movies? I don't know. I wrote, "Love the lady who runs the hotel. She's obsessed with her rubber plant."
She's queen. She was like, "I'm spraying my rubber plant with olive oil." Like, what? Like, okay.
Big sad boy energy from Scotty. Just go grab some Taco Bell and throw on some Phoebe Bridgers and cry it out. So I wrote that after the trial.
He is a bit emo.
One thing I noticed had to do with the mirrors, and then I found something after the fact that like confirmed what I was talking about. So I wrote during the movie that there's a lot of mirrors that reflect, especially Madeline and Judy. And then as I was writing that, like as Judy's talking about going to Ernie's with Johnny and she puts on the necklace,
Yeah.
the camera's angled so that you only see Judy. You don't see her reflection.
Yeah.
So that's the moment, at least in our protagonist's eyes, that Judy and Madeline become one. You don't see the two of them.
Bum, bum,
Which was like a really smart way of depicting that. And then I found
gorgeous.
I think that this was from the Ebert review. It says, or it could be from IMDb trivia. I don't know. My two resources. Shortly after Scotty meets Judy, he invites her to dinner at Ernie's. The two can be seen side by side in the mirror at the restaurant. This hints that, like his evil double, Gavin, he is about to remake her into Madeline and that she will suffer the same fate as the real Madeline.
I just am like, can't we find another restaurant?
No.
Like,
We just went to a restaurant that we used to go to like once a week when we lived in our other place.
yeah, but that was cranberry pizza.
Yeah. Shout out Cranberry Pizza. Shout out Ernie's.
Shout out Ernie's. Forget it. I love Ernie's.
One other thing I noticed was there's 3 chase scenes in this movie.
Okay.
There's the opener, there's the first tower scene, and then there's the second one, which is less of a chase scene and more of like a bottom up scene.
It's like a hey.
They all had wildly different tones, and they all got slower and slower.
That's true.
I wrote heart pounding excitement to curious mystery to slow pure terror.
See what I mean? Like, I can't criticize the choices in this movie
Yeah.
because they were purposeful. Everything was purposeful.
Yeah.
And I find it hard to criticize things that are like not like wildly offensive or like
Right,
factually wrong or whatever. If like that was a choice.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And like that's what helped make the movie what it was.
Yeah.
Unless it's Tree of Life.
One other thing I noticed was that there's when he kisses her the first time and she runs up when Judy runs up as Madeline the first time.
Yeah.
She says something about how it's too late for them to be together. She keeps saying it's too late, it's too late. And then at the end, he is saying that to her when she's like, no, I love you, we can be together. And he's like, no, it's too late, it's too late. And then the nun pops out. So it's like, it was a little bit of like a callback to that previous moment, which I thought was cool. Yeah, so those were my comments as I was watching.
Smart comments.
Thank you. I try. So we'll do some trivia.
My comments were like, whoa.
So they turned the hotel where he finds her
The Empire?
into Hotel Vertigo.
Oh, really?
It was called in Lower Nob Hill in San Francisco. As of 2023, it's closed.
Rats.
So the view down the stairwell that Vertigo shot cost $19,000
Is that a lot or not?
to make it for a couple of seconds of screen time.
Yeah, it's probably a lot.
That's probably about as much of about, say, like 4 frames of Avatar.
That's what I'm saying. Like, is that a lot?
But $19,000 in 1958? Yeah, that's a lot of money.
Okay.
In a later interview, Sir Alfred Hitchcock said he believed Kim Novak was miscast and that she was the wrong actress for the part.
That's so mean.
Yeah. No, but
I just don't like
he said
that.
it was his fault. Like,
I don't care.
Okay.
Like, that probably hurt her feelings.
Okay.
Like, when Donald Trump told her to, like, she should sue her plastic surgeon in 2019.
Her?
Yeah. Like, why would you say that? There's so many things that I'm just like, people need to just not say it because it's kind of mean. Like, when I said that young Sheldon was creepy, I feel really bad about that. Like, he's not creepy.
Okay. This movie's poster was selected as number 3 by Premiere of the 25 best movie posters ever.
It is a great poster.
Yeah. The name Madeline refers to Mary Magdalene, which in Hebrew comes from the word tower, Magdalene.
Whoa.
Madeline is the only name of the 4 main characters from the original French novel that was retained. Judy was Renee in the book, which comes from the word reborn. So, like Judy.
That's so cool.
Shout out Renee Zellweger too.
Yeah,
as Judy.
Whoa,
what the?
Ba ba ba.
Hitchcock lives. Yeah, Hitchcock frequently dined at Ernie's when he would visit San Francisco.
It's just iconic. I wish it was still around. We would go.
He also cast the maitre d' and the bartender in Vertigo. The real people from the restaurant.
That's amazing.
They were flown to Hollywood for filming on the set because it was the set of the movie at that point. Yeah, I'm not even going to go through the Vertigo effect. It's on IMDb trivia. I don't know what it's talking about, like the technical aspects of it.
No need.
Hitchcock contemplated editing Judy's flashback sequence because he was worried that audiences would lose interest if it was revealed too early.
It's not that I would lose interest. I was just like on my phone, which I don't think he was worried about in 1958.
No, well, if he was more visionary than we thought he was. 2 screenings for critics were held, one with the flashback and the other without it. With the flashback, critics for those screenings called it Hitchcock's best movie, and without it, critics called it one of his worst movies.
I think it's a must.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is Kim Novak's last appearance in an Alfred Hitchcock film, following his unspoken rule of never reusing the actor of a leading character who dies in a later film. Apparently,
he's so random.
Apparently, as he believed that if the same actor showed up again, it would lessen the impact of their earlier death scene.
That is not true.
Janet Leigh's sole appearance in a Hitchcock film, Psycho, also follows the rule. By contrast, Grace Kelly, Ingrid Bergman, Joan Fontaine, and Tippi Hedren each made multiple Hitchcock films, but none of their characters died or were murdered.
Spoiler.
Yeah. For all my Tippi heads out there.
That's a great name.
Yeah. She was in The Birds, right? That was, yeah. Yep. And casting, the one casting thing I have, because I don't know any of these people from back then, Marilyn Monroe campaigned heavily to be Judy.
She would have been great. I mean, here's the thing, though. She was more of a comedy girl.
Hitchcock feared her immense fame would overshadow everything else.
Fair.
And he also was a really controlling director, and he was like, I want to have as much control over my set as possible.
And that usually didn't happen with my girl.
Although he was on her approved list of directors to work with.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting.
They obviously never did, but
I love my girl, Norma Jean.
Yeah, those are my trivia.
I don't like blonde.
Oh, garbage. Garbage. Blonde or Mank?
Mank.
10 times out of 10.
Was so bad. Yo, I'm a Mank stan now.
All right. So Roger Ebert review. This is no joke. One of the best Roger Ebert reviews I've ever read. So I'm not gonna do the.
Oh Lord, Tom's getting in
I
his
got a lot of
Stan
it.
era.
Ebert gave it. What do you think? 4
4 out of
stars
4.
out of 4. He wrote the review October 13th, 1996. So
It was after the remaster.
Yes. There you go. He frames it as about Hitchcock himself. So he says, Vertigo, which is one of the 2 or 3 best films Hitchcock ever made, is the most confessional, dealing directly with the themes that controlled his art. It is about how Hitchcock used, feared, and tried to control women. He's represented by Scotty, who falls obsessively in love with the image of a woman, and not any woman, but the quintessential Hitchcock woman. When he cannot have her, he finds another woman and tries to mold her, dress her, train her, change her makeup and her hair until she looks like the woman he desires. He cares nothing about the clay he is shaping. He will gladly sacrifice her on the altar of his dreams. But of course, the woman he is shaping and the woman he desires are the same person. Talks about the murder plot. When he finds out he was tricked, his rage is uncontrollable. He screams out the words, "Did he train you?" Each syllable is a knife in his heart as he spells out that another man shaped the woman that Scotty thought to shape for himself. The other man has taken not merely Scotty's woman, but Scotty's dream. That creates a moral paradox at the center of Vertigo. The other man, Gavin, has, after all, only done this to this woman what Scotty also wanted to do. And while the process was happening, the real woman, Judy, transferred her allegiance from Gavin to Scotty, and by the end was not playing her role for money, but as a sacrifice for love. Then he talks about when she comes out of the bathroom in the green haze, and he says, as Hitchcock cuts back and forth between Novak's face, showing such pain, such sorrow, such a will to please, and Stewart's, in a rapture of lust and gratified control, we feel hearts being torn apart. They are both slaves of an image fabricated by a man who is not even in the room, Gavin, who created, quote-unquote, Madeline as a device to allow himself to get away with the murder of his wife. As Scotty embraces Madeline, even the background changes to reflect his subjective memories instead of the real room he's in. Bernard Herrmann's score creates a haunting, unsettled yearning, and the camera circles them hopefully like the pinwheel images in Scotty's nightmares, until the shot is about the dizzying futility of our human desires, the impossibility of forcing life to make us happy. This shot, in its psychological, artistic, and technical complexity, may be the one time in his entire career that Alfred Hitchcock completely revealed himself in all of his passion and sadness. He was a great visual stylist in 2 ways. He used obvious images and surrounded them with a subtle context. Consider the obvious ways he suggests James Stewart's Vertigo. An opening shot shows him teetering on a ladder looking down at a street below. Flashbacks show why he left the police force. A bell tower at a mission terrifies him, and Hitchcock creates a famous shot to show his point of view. The space has the logic of a nightmare. But then notice less obvious ways, like I said before, that the movie sneaks in the concept of falling, as when Scotty drives down San Francisco's hills but never up, and note how truly he falls in love. There's another element rarely commented on that makes Vertigo a great film. From the moment we are let in on the secret, the movie is equally about Judy, her pain, her loss, the trap she's in. Hitchcock so cleverly manipulates the story so that when the 2 characters climb up that mission tower, we identify with both of them and fear for both of them, and in a way, Judy is less guilty than Scotty. The danger is to see Judy as an object in the same way that Scotty sees her. She is, in fact, one of the most sympathetic female characters in all of Hitchcock.
Wow.
Over and over in his films, Hitchcock took delight in literally and figuratively dragging his women through the mud, humiliating them, spoiling their hair and clothes as if lashing at his own fetishes. Judy in Vertigo is the closest he ever came to sympathizing with the female victims of his plots. And Novak, criticized at the time for playing the character too stiffly, has made the correct acting choices. Ask yourself how you would move and speak if you were in unbearable pain, and then look again at Judy. Ebert's unreal.
Nobody doesn't like Ebert. Nobody doesn't like Hitchcock. Nobody doesn't like Ebert, baby.
Ebert is the Hitchcock of reviews.
He's amazing.
He's unreal.
Love.
We just talked about this movie for probably, I don't know how long it's been, but like Ebert took it to another level in 4 paragraphs.
Oh, we're like our son.
Exactly. Exactly. So that's all I got on Vertigo. Oh, wait, the tagline. So I love taglines. And I looked up the tagline for this movie, and one of the taglines apparently was a Hitchcock thriller. You should see it from the beginning. What?
That's like something I would say. How about my tagline? Verdict, go see this movie.
Yeah, exactly. That's what's on our little light box here if you're not
with a little
checking
Megan twist, because I ran out of E's, so I put a 3 at the end.
Another tagline, somewhere, somehow, he'd loved and killed that self-same girl before.
That's like, it was like originally in a different language, and they put it into Google Translate.
Oh
Wait,
man.
say that again? Somewhere, somehow, he done loved that, killed the girl? I'm like, what?
It's somewhere, somehow, he loved and killed that self-same girl before.
The self-same is getting me.
Just say same. Just say same.
Okay, I had to
That's it.
let me tell you something though. I had to edit a little something earlier, which ended up changing the whole thing.
Yes.
Like, people need to not write the same word, words with the same meaning right next to each other.
Yeah.
Where it's like, he's a dedicated, committed person. That's the same thing.
Yeah.
Choose one. That's
Okay.
my PSA as an English teacher.
Yes. Yeah, so the tagline's not great. There were more of them, and none of them were very good.
I loved them.
They're excellent taglines. Vertigo, see this movie. Okay, so does Vertigo make...
Wait, what about my... I thought you always do a life lesson, takeaways.
No, well, we say, does it go on first, and then we're going to takeaways.
Okay, yeah.
Does Vertigo, 1958, go on Baby's first watch list?
Yeah.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
You
good.
can't... If he likes movies, then, you can't really love movies and not watch movies like this.
Love that for you.
Okay.
And me.
Yeah.
And us.
So, what are your takeaways?
Hold on. Okay, my takeaway is this. It's chill. Chill out, dude. You don't need to worry that much. You know? Okay, let me just say this. If the love of your life, tragically something bad happens to her, don't find a double.
Yes. Don't force somebody else to be a double.
Yeah.
That's basically... you want to know the Hitchcock twist? I didn't write one. I didn't write a takeaway. But basically what I'm thinking is something the same. Listen to what other people want.
Yeah, how about don't make people bleach their hair? Also, the biggest lie ever in this movie. You could tell this was written by a man. Do you know how I know? One line. When he goes to the hairdresser and he's like, so can you do it? And she's like, oh yeah, it's the easiest hair color to do. Bleaching someone's hair is very, you can't just make it perfectly blonde in an hour.
Hitchcock, baby. Movie magic.
What was the movie where somebody dyed their hair and it didn't get absolutely everywhere? Do you remember that?
Oh, yeah.
Someone dyed their hair in the middle of the movie, blue, and then the bathroom was pristine. I was
for some reason, Closer is coming to mind, but I don't think it was Closer.
I don't think it was. But I was just, I forget what it was. But I was like, well, that's your first reason why this is awful.
Yeah.
The bathroom is absolutely perfect, not a splotch of blue dye anywhere.
I'll try and figure it out for next episode.
Yeah, perfect.
So next episode is our Mother's Day episode.
Ew.
So it's gonna be Mamma Mia, and
Mamma
Erin's mom's
Mia.
gonna be on.
Yeah, 2 mommies.
Yeah, on Mamma Mia.
3 mamas. Mamma Mia, me and my mom.
Yeah, Meryl, me, and my mom.
It's going to be unhinged. My mom is taking it very seriously. She's already watched the movie.
Yeah.
She said it's way sillier than she remembered.
I didn't love it the first time I watched it, but I'm open. I'm open to a rewatch.
I mean, it's a great movie, so
Sure.
of course you'll love it.
Sure.
And it's got Mank star Amanda Seyfried.
Oh, Manka Mia.
All right, I think that's it, right?
All right, yeah, that's it. So we will see you next week. Keep following, keep doing stuff, keep sharing our Rick Talks and Teals, TikToks,
So
Reels.
late.
Yeah, just support any way you can. We
All
love
right.
that.
I love it.
We will see you next week for Mamma Mia.
Bye-bye.
See you later.
Here we go again.